Okay, got it. Okay.
Where you going with this tomorrow, Wall Township?
Where are you going?
Exactly, okay. I don't blame you. So it's about this.
Good evening, everyone. We have a regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Cape May, New Jersey. We are here in the Cape May City Hall Auditorium. Today is Tuesday, April 18th, 2023. The time is now 5:02. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Clerk, before we go to roll call, unfortunately, I have to ask for a moment of silence for a former council member and just an upstanding, wonderful person in the city of Cape May, Mr. Jack Wichterman. He was a member at Cape May National Golf Club, and I grew up with him as a young man, and I can kind of still hear him saying, "Oh, Good to see you, Sonny, you know, and his deep voice that he had. And so if we could have a moment of silence for Mr. Jack Wichterman. Thank you very much. Clerk?
Under the Open Public Meetings Law, notice of this meeting was sent to the Cape May County Herald and the Press of Atlantic City, and a copy of the agenda was delivered to each member of City Council and posted on the Cape May City website and Cape May City Hall Bulletin Board. Notice is hereby provided that Cape May City Council meetings are audio recorded and video streamed live. Live video streams are posted to the Cape May City website. The City of Cape May is not responsible if audio recording or live video streaming of a meeting is unavailable. Roll call. Deputy Mayor Baldwin.
Here.
Councilmember McDade.
Here.
Councilmember Meyer.
Here.
Mayor Mullick.
Here.
Councilmember Yeager.
Here.
City Solicitor Gillen Schwartz.
Here.
And City Manager Vol.
Here.
Okay, Mayor, real quick, we do just have one resolution to remove and then one to add in place if we want to do that.
Okay.
So we will be removing Resolution 126-04-2023, resolution declaring eligibility to conduct self-examination of the 2023 budget.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Yeager,
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer,
Yes.
Councilmember McDade,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Baldwin,
Yes.
Mayor Mullick.
Yes.
And in place, we will be adding 126-04-2023, which is a resolution to amend the budget.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Yeager,
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer,
Yes.
Councilmember McDade,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Baldwin,
Yes.
Mayor Mullick.
Yes. Okay, and it's an honor this evening to be joined by someone who's done so many different things for the city of Cape May. And I have a proclamation to read for Mr. Bill Murray. Bill, come on up. Bill, I meant to wear my red and gray for the St. Joseph's, but I didn't know you were going to have the Villanova shirt on today, but yeah. So I have a proclamation for you this evening. Recognizing Bill Murray for his service for the City of Cape May Zoning Board of Adjustment. Whereas Bill Murray, born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, frequent visitor to Cape May for over 64 years, and whereas Mr. Murray has dedicated the last 20 years serving the City of Cape May in various volunteer activities, including as a member of the Zoning Board of Adjustment, the Planning Board, the Fire Police, Chairman of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Committee, and served as an elected city official as a council member here at this very table. Whereas Mr. Murray, in his retirement as an attorney and partner of the Duane Morris Law Firm of Philadelphia, serves as an arbitrator for the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas, has resided in the historic district of the City of Cape May for over 20 years. And whereas Mr. Murray has served as a valuable member, including vice chairperson of the Cape May City Zoning Board of Adjustment for over 11 years. And whereas during his time on the Zoning Board of Adjustment, Mr. Murray weighed in on a vast number of residential and commercial variance applications, always with the city's best interest in mind. And whereas in his retirement from the Zoning Board of Adjustment, Mr. Murray and his fiancée, Mary Scott, look forward to many more bike rides, beach days, and enjoying the fine restaurants of the City of Cape May. Now, therefore, I, Zachary M. Mullick, Mayor of the City of Cape May, hereby recognize Bill Murray for his many years of public service and thank him for his selflessness in giving his time and energy to the service of his community and extend him our best wishes in his retirement. Bill, congratulations. Thank you.
Just briefly, thank you very much. It's indeed an honor to get this. It was indeed an honor to serve this city for the years. I enjoyed it. I first came here 65 years ago, right after the Navy, and I've been here ever since. Got a lot of good friends down there. And again, I was so sorry to hear about Jack, was one of my good friends down here too. We served on council together. but it was my privilege to be able to give back to the city and to work with the city, to work with the elected officials, to work with people who work with the city as well. It's my adopted home after all these years, and thank you again. I'm very, very grateful for this. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, with that, City Manager, do you have any updates for us this evening?
I'll be brief, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, we've got a lot of road projects going on. We're meeting with all departments and hiring people, the beach taggers, the lifeguards, getting ready for a safe summer season. So we're real busy with personnel right now. Other than that, I'll just be brief because I know it's the budget meeting tonight. So I'll give you a written update on other projects this week.
Okay. City Solicitor?
I don't have anything tonight. Thank you.
Okay. On to ordinances for introduction.
Yes, we have 499-2023, an ordinance authorizing a lease agreement with Eastland Theater Company for the Allen AME Church.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions or comments on this lease agreement?
I have some comments, Mayor.
Sure.
If I may. I am very supportive of Eastland Theater Company. I like seeing somebody use this building. I just currently have a little bit of trouble wrapping my head around the addition to the back of the building. Now, I might vote no to introduce this just for that specific reason, but my mind is not completely made up yet. I'll be asking the supporters of this project to reach out to me and help me understand how that would look and how it would function. So,
Okay.
we still have another shot at this.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this one? No?
I think it's a great, yeah, just real quick, I think this is a great addition to the city, taking a look at the AME Church and looking at what it could have been, because we all know that there was talk about, you know, it not being salvaged. I think this is a great addition. It's a wonderful addition that Eastland Theater can come and continue with our arts and community area of the city. And then when you have that culture in the city, it really grows your city. I look at the MAC, I look at Cape May Stage. There are so many organizations in the city that are city-owned properties that have really strengthened community. So I really think it's a great addition.
I would agree also. I think that it speaks to the support that the Eastland has by the number of people here in attendance tonight, including their current landlord, who obviously sees this as an opportunity for the Eastland Theater to grow beyond. It's a wonderful use of the building. It is great that the city has preserved it, and I can understand and appreciate your concern wanting to, you know, fully vet any changes that might be, but I would expect that the HPC is going to weigh in on that there will be a number of discussions and debates about, you know, what the most appropriate design is. But the fact that this was not lost to the city and is being a reinvestment and an expansion of it for the theater, I think is a wonderful opportunity and strongly support it.
Thank you.
And if I could, yeah, I'd just like to say, I think for me, the thing that makes it easiest to vote yes for is that members of the AME Church support this. And I think if they support this, there's no way I can't, so.
Good. Thank you. And I'll just add a few things. I think, Deputy Mayor, you mentioned a couple of the organizations, of course, MAC at the Physic Estate. The city would never be able to do what MAC does. You know, they do such an excellent job and add so much to our city. Same thing at Cape May Stage. We certainly could never do anything like Cape May Stage, and they do such a wonderful job. And frankly, have also been such good stewards of that building. You look at the, I think it's improving, but you look at the state of the city-owned properties that we have, And the fact is, the city is okay at maintaining our properties, but we're not anything like when you go to the Physic Estate. I see a smile. It's not like when you go to the Physic Estate. It's not like when you go to Cape May Stage, or even the Chamber of Commerce, which is in a city building, and so is at Rutgers. Many people forget, right on the harbor. And I know the Nature Center, of course, which we just renewed their lease last year for 25 years, which we would never be able to put on the programs that the Nature Center puts on for our children, our youth, and frankly, our young at heart. They've done just such a wonderful job there. And I think this only adds to it. I want to point out for the public's edification as well, unlike Cape May Stages, we would have public access to this building. And that's built right into the lease agreement, and I'm sure the solicitor can give us a little bit of background on it as well. But public access to this building is extremely important. We want to make sure that anyone who wants to put on a little show or have a book signing or some collaboration with the new library across the street, the city has access to this building, and that's pretty well defined within this contract. But I also just point out to one other thing is preservation for preservation's sake is kind of a topic within the historic preservation. Whoever is up here, you don't know what their goals and what their wants are. This body has been pretty pro-historic preservation, and this kind of cements the preservation into that building for the next 25 years. I don't think we can come up with a better steward than Eastland Theater, who in this contract as well talk about the capital improvements that they would be responsible for in the building. So for our, by the numbers taxpayers, which I understand, built in this lease is capital expenditures being a responsibility of the leasee. So I think it provides a lot of benefits to the city, but I think not even getting into the arts and cultural aspects that this really adds that I think would make this block really, really something fantastic. And to Mr. Meyer's point in regards to any additions to the building, all of which as a city-owned property would have to go before the State Historic Preservation Office, SHPO. All of it would have to go before our local HPC, which frankly, if it didn't have to, we'd still want it to. And have any discussions of an addition have already included the chairman of the HPC right from the very beginning. So that dialogue would continue, and we would insist as a city that HPC not just be part of the permitting process as they typically would, we'd want them to be part of the design process from the very beginning. So we all are in agreement on that. We want HPC's approval for this. And I think just like they did for the addition to Cape May Stage, they came up with a wonderful design to make a functional theater, but also something that preserves the history of that building. So that's a somewhat brief synopsis of what we're looking at. Mr. Solicitor, would you like to add anything to that in regards to the contract?
I'll just add a
The
few
lease.
boring comments on top of that. They're just
Boring.
these comments will be boring, not the previous ones. Just to say that this lease is consistent across the board with the numerous other leases that the city has in place for nonprofits, and that usually involves nominal dollar consideration. In exchange, the nonprofit's going to take responsibility, substantial responsibility for the building and its operations and caretaking for it. This is no different. It's unique in that the city is reserving public access for itself and for the public for certain hours when the theater is not going to be in operation. And just to specifically address, potentially address Councilman Meyer's concern, I think that was a concern that was shared by the administration and a lot of other council members too, which is what about the changes to the building? And that's really covered in paragraph 5 on the rehabilitation of the property. It indicates in Section A, the tenant will complete or cause to be completed the improvements that are referenced in Schedule A in conformity with the United States Secretary of Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties, the city's Historic Preservation Commission guidelines and standards, and in strict compliance with the applicable laws, regulations, ordinances, et cetera. In addition, in Section C, it specifically talks about that bump out, and it references it, calls it the bump out in the back, and it says that the bump out will be constructed by licensed contractors and all required permits, approvals from the city, including its planning board and Historic Preservation Commission, and to the extent necessary, the New Jersey Historic State Preservation Office. All work shall be done in a good and workmanlike manner, subject to the city's reasonable approval. I think that last line is really the most important and contemplates that, you know, the city's going to continue to have access to this building. It's a very important property in the city. It's an important city asset, and any changes to that will always be in coordination with the city and going through the Historic Preservation Commission, and involves a conversation about, you know, what do we want this building to look like collectively, and the city will always continue to have a say in that. So that was important to include in here, and I think Eastland Theater was willingly agreeing to that and indicating that they wanted to partner with the city. So just wanted to provide that additional context, and that there is some language in there that contemplates an ongoing discussion about the appearance of the building and making sure that we're compliant with all webs of regulations that may be applicable to that building.
Great. Any other questions or comments?
I just want to say I look forward to meeting with all of you.
Thank you. We will have comment actually, this is introduction, so.
Yeah, there's none.
Well, we have people here. Do you want to wait for public comment or no?
I'm okay with public comment. They are here.
I'm fine with public comment.
Okay.
Can, with an
Typically, we would have public comment on second reading, but it's clear that people are here to speak on it, and we have a public comment section a little further into it, but I think it's clear that people are here to speak on that, so let's not wait till then. So we'll open it up for public comment on this ordinance only at this time. We'll have other public comment later. But if anyone would like to say anything, please come to the microphone and state your name and address.
Hello, Susan Tischler, 506 Washington Street Mall. I'm the president of the Eastland Theater Board of Trustees. I'm so excited to see this ordinance finally make its way to fruition. The process began in 2019 when the good folks from the Center for Community Arts approached me about using the space to make the AME Eastland's permanent home after the fire damaged this historic church and after it was decommissioned as a church. The prospect of partnering with the city to open this historic and sacred space to the public for the purpose of creating not only a theater, but a community gathering spot is incredibly exciting. Eastland, by virtue of its very mission, is dedicated to preserving and honoring history. Furthermore, it has always tried to extol social conscience in the plays it presents. Last year's production of Possessing Harriet was just one fine example. An empty building, and especially an empty church with no purpose and no organization in charge of it, is just a shell. An empty church with only a municipality taking care of it and its historic structure, which exists only at the mercy of the current administration, is only an empty shell. A building that does not have the ability to draw new life into its walls can easily become a condo like the yellow church at the end of the same street. Or with the new administration that is not preservation-oriented, as this one is, it could easily become a parking lot or a boutique hotel. And then, just like that, the Black history, which is so much an integral part of our community, evaporates into thin air and becomes a memory soon to be forgotten, which simply becomes a note on a walking tour pointing out what used to be. Under the direction of our new artistic director, Craig Foles, Eastland is already thinking of ways to honor that history. I'll leave it to him to detail that vision. But we are honored by this opportunity. We look forward to working with the city to draw tourists and locals into the church and to remind them of where we came from and where we are headed. Eastland looks forward to being a bridge between the past and the future. We visualize not only mainstay productions at the AME, but in partnership with the city, hosting lectures, music concerts, art exhibitions, bringing children into the facility to share with them the rich history that we have. And always, always present will be the reminder of those who came to the AME to worship, the reminder of those who came to the AME for fellowship, and to be ever mindful that Eastland will be the caretakers of a Black church rich with history of those who once filled its pews, and an enticement to bring new folks into those seats as the years go by. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Craig Foles. I'm extremely honored to be among you today. I'm new to East Lynn. I'm not new to Cape May. I grew up in South Jersey. I've had one foot in Cape May for my whole life, basically. My mother bought a house in Town Bank when she retired in '96, and my sister and I were able to hold on to it until 2016. So my nephew could have a Cape May childhood also. So I have deep roots in this community, and I love it very much. I just want to say quickly, I was only hired about 2 months ago, and two things were made clear to me by the board of East Lynn. The first one was this exciting opportunity to have a dedicated theater for our company, and how that would change things for East Lynn, but also it was made clear that this would be a partnership with the city. It wasn't just going to be our theater, it was going to be basically doors open to people in the community who wanted to do something, you know, and I'm all about that. I just think that's terrific. And a unique opportunity for this town, and you know, I look forward to that partnership if you were to grant us the lease. And then the other thing that I was told was, okay, we're going, if we're lucky, we're going into an AME church, and we need to honor that legacy. And so the very first thing I did was call my friend Kyle Bass, who's a Black playwright who wrote Possessing Harriet, a play I recommended to East Lynn for last season. And long story short, we sent him a book that Susan edited, a Black history in Cape May, an oral history book. And Kyle has agreed to let us commission him to write a play. If we were to get the lease and open a season at the AME Church, we would open with Kyle's play, which would be about Black Cape May history. Wow. And that's not just a commitment for one play. And P.S., we're also doing his, to keep him before our audiences, we're doing his one-man play about James Baldwin. We're inaugurating a Juneteenth event, which will be on the 18th. Please all come. It's a wonderful piece. But I'm very conscious that this is the direction the theater needs to move in. You know, it wouldn't be just a couple plays or just Kyle's plays. It's a commitment because, as Susan alluded, it's not just an empty building. It's a way of honoring the legacy and keeping the cultural history of Cape May moving forward. Thank you.
That's wonderful.
Hi. For those of you who don't know me, I used to be a member of this council some years ago.
Oh, Roger.
I served on the two prior administrations along with Shane. And I was also, prior to that, I was the vice chair of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. I served many years on the Historic Preservation Commission. And after I was in council, I served on the Municipal Buildings and Properties Advisory Committee. And so I'm quite familiar with all the assets that the city owns and how they're being administered. Having been a past council member, I'm very saddened to hear about Jack Richterman. It was his seat that I replaced when I became a council member. And Jack gave me some advice before I got on council. And he said, no matter what decision I make, you can depend on the fact that I will piss off 50% of the people.
Sounds like him.
I don't think that was quite the case. At least I hope it wasn't. But I'm very sad to see him go. And also, I'm glad to see Bill Murray having been acknowledged also. I served on committees with him, and he well deserved it. But I digress. I was here when the unfortunate accident occurred that caused the fire on the AME Church. When things settled down, I inspected the church along with Jerry Enderweiss, then city manager, Warren Copeland, the HPC chair, and Emily Dempsey, who was a member of the church. And it was really devastating to see the inside damage that was done to the church. However, we looked at it and we thought it was salvageable. Warren was very instrumental in working with the insurance companies to get insurance payments for the damage that was done. But unfortunately, the AME administration in Philadelphia decided not to repair the church. So I applaud the city for acquiring the church and restoring it to what it was. I further endorse the city's decision to partner with ELTC. They would make good use of the building and would attract the residents and vacationers to this historic structure, while also serving as a venue for the city functions. Cape May has much Black history, as is demonstrated in the Harriet Tubman Museum and the Underground Railroad Tour, which is sanctioned by the National Park Service, and preserving and adding the AME Church to Cape May's legacy strengthens the honoring of the Black heritage by ELTC's mission to promote historical and diverse topics. Having sat in on meetings with the city, initial restoration architects, and with on-site reviews of the building with Lou Belasco and others from the city, I think it is quite feasible to adapt the church to accommodate ELTC performances and city events while still maintaining the appearance of the building as a house of worship. It will be an added attraction for vacationers to enjoy Cape May's legacy and will demonstrate the city's appreciation for the arts. In reference to Shane's comment, I've heard comments before about putting an addition on the back of the church. I have a photo from 1937 that shows that there was an additional building back there, which was the rectory of the rectory for the church, and I think there was a passageway between the two buildings about as wide as a person. So historically, there was a structure there. I'll send Shane the picture of it. I mean, you can judge for yourself what you think of it, but it may give you more information. So with that, I urge council to approve this resolution and give ELTC a home, and I think it'll be great for the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amelia Drake, Amy Drake. I'm from South Philadelphia, and I've been living in Cape May for the last 7 years. First and foremost, Eastland Theater, so proud. Love the work you're going to do. I will be there. Anything for Black history in this area, I'm there. I'm so proud of all of you. It's wonderful, wonderful, and I will be there. But I just have a quick thought. Did anyone at AME or maybe anyone on this council think that maybe a homeless shelter might have been a good idea for that spot? And if maybe not that spot, is there another spot in Cape May for just a quick place for those that live in Cape May that are maybe down on their luck, some unfortunate incident, evicted through no fault of their own, maybe running from an abusive situation at home. Just a quick stay over to help a human being get on their feet. I mean, talk about purpose. That would be purpose.
I think
Has
certainly-
anyone, is that even in your sights?
To be honest with you, I don't think it was for the AME Church, to be honest with you. I will say, and this probably doesn't suffice exactly what you're saying, but for the firehouse, which is being built right now, we had certain standards with Code Blue to make sure that there was places for people who, if they needed to come in from the cold, they have a spot within the firehouse right across the street. I don't want to confuse anything being a homeless shelter, because it's not, But we did specifically design that so that if somebody needed to get off the street, if they were cold, that was a place that they could go. I know that's not exactly the answer that you're looking for, but I mention it only because we're building it as we speak.
All right, that's a start, Zach.
Yeah.
That's
it's
a start.
I hear you.
Yeah, I worked for 12 years for Project Home in Center City, Philadelphia. So I guess I'm used to Sister Mary Scullion just making things happen. Like, we're going to open up a homeless, low-income housing in Center City across from Lowe's Hotel. Well, that's never going to happen. Sister Mary made it happen, along with Bon Jovi, PHA, HUD. He's fantastic, by the way, Bon Jovi. What a gentleman. What a Class A act. So that's what we've got right now, is just something for the cold.
We are working with low-income housing, that much bigger project, and we are looking at a big project with the Housing Authority. But so many details are undone at this point. I really don't want to comment on it at this point, but it is something that we are working on.
Okay, but nothing per se for a homeless shelter.
Homeless, no.
Just a quick,
Low income,
just a quick
Yeah.
stay over if someone's in trouble.
no.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any chance of that happening anywhere in the future, or no? No.
It's a big discussion to have, but I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
I see someone who's here to support the Eastland Theater who was already shaking their head in agreement, so I understand that.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys are awesome. I'm just so proud of your work and what you're going to do. That's a beautiful thing.
Thank you.
Okay, Zach, you're awesome. You're awesome.
Okay.
Keep up the good work.
Make sure that gets in the minutes.
Good evening, everybody. Bernadette Matthews Gibbons, Board of Trustees of Eastland Theater Company, former Executive Director for the Center for Community Arts, very involved in this community in every aspect of supporting tourism, supporting particularly as this discussion is about African American history here as it relates to the utilization of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, and I'd like to say the whole name, being a staunch AMER, African Methodist Episcopaler. And it is with all our intent and passion to preserve and develop and present the history of the church through the activities, being somewhat of a caretaker for the building as a part of Eastland Theater. I mean, we've already maybe been a little presumptive, but hopefully not. Spoken with, the Historical Society, the MAC, Cape May MAC, CCA, those organizations as it relates to developing programs, seminars, lunch and learn type of events, guided tours, presenting historical timelines with photographs and language to really develop the history of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Richard Allen, African Methodist Episcopal Church. I'm not going to go into the history as I've done before here at these sessions, but we would be very respectful of the history of the church, the history of African Methodist Episcopalism, and we're just over the top happy to be able to do that for Eastland Theater Company. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I was debating whether this was necessary because I think the point's been made. They're great. But I am there, or sort of standing in for the previous landlord or the current landlord. And the one thing, one thing I want to say is, we're a church organization. They've been working with us. So I think, there's that sensibility in Eastland Theater, and it seems appropriate to sort of hand them over to another, at least church building, and, you know, historic, both are historic church buildings. And the other thing is they are very used to working around our schedule, I mean, much more so than they will have to do with the city. Obviously, it's beneficial for them to have their own space. But yeah, so I can't imagine that could be a problem, so. And very respectful and knowledgeable about history, you know, for their own purposes. So, yeah, go for it.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Wilkinson, and thank you for being such a good steward to the city of Cape May and providing a home for them for so many years. Eastland Theater has been already such an asset to the city, and it's a thanks to you and your congregation very much. And I think landlord recommendation is always welcome, so thank you. Stacy, hello.
Stacy Shan, 928 Columbia Avenue. I just want to let you say, you know, I was on council when we decided to purchase the AME Church to preserve it as a black church and for what it is. And the whole idea of it being a black church is that it's smaller than most churches. So my concern is that this bump out, which is described as a 2-story addition, is more than a bump out. And I want to make sure that we're not taking away the historic value of this church, which is that it's small, and there's a reason that it's small, because of the finances that were used to build the church. And I wanted to ask about this HPC approval. Is it an approval or is it a suggestion? What is it that they're going to have? Because we also received a lot of money from the state to preserve this church. And I want to make sure that because we preserved it, that we're not going to lose that with the addition.
So with any city property, it must go before HPC, but I guess it would be considered suggestions rather than necessarily commandments from the HPC, like a residence or a commercial property. However, I'd be willing to say right now that we'd be happy to work with the HPC and go with whatever recommendations that they make. So I don't think that's an issue that we see. I served on HPC for years. Frankly, I always thought that the recommendations that they made a better project. So I'm willing to say that here publicly, that we would commit to whatever recommendations the HPC would make, not just as a recommendation, but something that the city would commit to do.
Right, because I mean, I had made the suggestion while I was on council that the CCA building, which they're planning on demolishing, if that could be moved towards the back and make that the addition for the East Line to use as their building, which could save on expenses for them, just, you know, building another building, but it also would not be quite that 2-story and would blend in a little bit better, would be my suggestion. And I have a question for Mr. Gillen-Schwartz. Being that this is an ordinance, is the city circumventing anything in our own other ordinances having to do with, I guess, leases and everything by saying that they're going to allow this addition?
The short answer to that is no. We're doing this by ordinance because that's what the local lands and buildings law requires. So, and the purpose of that is really to give the public 2 opportunities to comment on this. We're getting a really big opportunity now, but this will be a second reading after it's published, and then they'll adopt it again. And that's to give the public an opportunity to comment on whether they think the city's plan to lease public property is a good idea or not.
Well,
I'm sorry, the second part of your question?
well, the question wasn't really about leasing it as much as it is in that lease agreement, we're saying you can go ahead and put on that addition. And I don't know why we added that into the lease agreement about the addition.
The reason for that is because the consideration for this lease is nominal, it's $1. But what they're proposing in an exhibit is, here's what we're proposing to do in terms of improvements to this building. And that is really the meat of the consideration, as I see it, for this lease, is that they're willing to, they're putting down as best they can on paper right now, here are the things that we plan on doing to make an improvement to this building, to make it fit for our intended use, but acknowledging in writing in multiple locations in this lease, because I drafted it, that if there are conditions of grants, if there are state or local requirements that have to be complied with. We're just going to have to mold the operation to that and make sure that that building fits within a lawful box.
And then my other question having to do with the lease, with the Physic Estate and the stage, they take care of all their utilities. Will they be taking care of their utilities, or will the city be paying their utilities?
There's shared use here, so there will be times similar to, I think I'm hearing now that the way it is now with the church, that the theater is, quote, dark, and those will be hours, there will be reserved public hours or for public use, for the city's use. And because of that, there's going to be some apportionment of utilities and that kind of thing. So,
Wouldn't that be in part of that lease to put in there what the utility breakdown would be?
well, I mean, it's going to depend on the operation. So what the city and I think Eastland Theater are proposing to do is, we can deal with utilities. Let's see what the extent of the use is based on the project schedule, based on what the city's needs are and what Eastland Theater's needs are. And it envisions a discussion of apportioning those reasonably between those two operations. And recognizing that it's not entirely exclusive use like some of the other leases that we have, like the Nature Center and the Physic Estate.
Well, but in the Nature Center, we did, give them the lease to improve it and stuff like that.
Right, and my point is, they're similar in that they're all involving nonprofits, but this one actually is reserving more use for the city than maybe those other examples. So if the question is, why aren't they responsible for all the utilities? The answer is, well, that was a discussion about parties sharing this building still, even after they take possession of it.
So they will be paying part of the utilities then?
Correct, there's going to be a discussion and apportionment based on use. That's what it contemplates.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Gillen Schwartz, is there any reason why we wouldn't want to just include that language in the lease?
It's
Is it in there already?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I've looked at it, but it's pretty detailed. Okay, as long as it's in there, I think that should address the concerns that since it will be based on usage, it's very hard to determine or prescribe that in advance, as long as the lease has that language.
It's paragraph 10, actually. It says all utilities, with the exception of phone and cable, will remain in the city's name, and with cost sharing is more fully set forth in paragraph 4, which talks about that discussion about use and determining the extent of that. But recognizing the reality that we're not going to know the extent until we kind of get into the meat of operations.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
I'm David McKenzie, 1148 Washington Street. I'm also Executive Director of the Center for Community Arts. I'll make 3 really quick comments. I really can't add to what's been said about the historic importance of the church and the importance of East Lynn to the community. I do remember the day when I took Lee and Gail through the church, getting through the back door and stepping over rubble to get the first look and the first vision of what that could look like as a theater. And if people are interested in the history of the church, they can pick up a copy of Black Voices of Cape May from CCA or Amazon.com. And very, very good history of that. And we have both the editor and one of our authors over there, Hope Gaines. And the issue of adding onto the building, I think one of the checks that the city and the community will have is the need to go to the State Preservation Office. And we had to do that with the Franklin Street School with some changes to that design. That is not an easy process. It's a very disciplined process. And I think that everybody can be assured that in getting state approval on that, that the historic integrity of the building and the site would be preserved.
Absolutely.
And we clearly, obviously, enthusiastically support the project. No question about it.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, then we will move on to, actually, we will stay on this ordinance and take a vote, I think.
Yes,
We have a motion and a second, correct?
we do.
Any other questions or comments from council on this ordinance? No? Okay, roll call?
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
No.
Councilmember McDade?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Baldwin?
Yes.
Mayor Mellick?
Yes.
Next, we have ordinances for second reading and consideration for adoption. 492-2023, an ordinance amending zoning code to clarify provisions regarding bulk setbacks to public property and non-conforming structures.
Do I have a motion?
I make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And just for the folks that are here for this, that passed for first reading, and then we'll come back for second reading, just so you know. And if you would like to get going, you'd be happy to.
Now's the time to go.
Should we open up the public before we vote?
Yeah, so we have a public hearing on this ordinance 492. Is anyone here wishing to speak on ordinance 492 regarding bulk setbacks? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do we have any questions or comments from council? No? Roll call?
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember McDade?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Baldwin?
Yes.
Mayor Mellick?
Yes.
493-2023, an ordinance affirming authority of city tax collector to direct manner of payment in the event of non-sufficient fund checks.
Do I have a motion?
Public comment?
Yeah, we'll introduce it, right?
Uh,
Motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Anyone wishing to speak on 493? Anyone here on 493? Seeing none?
I have a comment.
Oh, go ahead, sorry, yep.
I just, and it's a point of order procedural comment. Should a motion be made and seconded before the public, or I don't think I remember that being the order of things. What I think I remember is that the public would speak, and then there's a motion and a second.
I think it makes sense to frame it the way that you're proposing, Councilman Meyer, to say we're opening it for public comment so the council hears all the comments potentially out there, and then you can entertain a motion in a second after that.
Okay.
You want to hear the public comment first.
I think
And
that's,
we've effectively
procedural.
been doing that, but it's just kind of shifting the vote after. So I
Is anyone here to speak on 493? Seeing none, do I have we have a motion and a second. Any questions?
thank the
Understood.
city solicitor and the city manager for working with this. I think it's an important thing to get ahead of, and I think our employees are going to benefit from it.
Any other comments, council? Roll call?
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember McDade?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Baldwin?
Yes.
Mayor Mellick?
Yes.
494-2023, an ordinance of the City of Cape May amending the city code to establish Section 92-7 entitled Municipal Buildings Restricted Areas to Safeguard Records.
Is anyone here wishing to make public comment on 494? Ordinance 494? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments, council? Roll call?
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember McDade?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Baldwin?
Yes.
Mayor Mellick?
Yes.
496-2023, an ordinance prohibiting parking on city-owned property known as Block 1031, Lot 44.03 in the area of Cape Hart Lane.
Anyone here wishing to speak on 496 Cape Hart Lane parking? Seeing none, we can close public comment. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions or comments?
I have a comment. I rode by that area yesterday, and there's construction equipment and sand and supplies on the city right-of-way, the paved area. So I think code enforcement should get down there and tell them to clean up their mess.
Okay, absolutely. I just want to thank everyone for working on this. I know Councilmember McDade and Meyer, and I think we've all been down
Yeah.
there.
I think
but-
everybody's-
Yeah,
everybody's-
yeah, but
And I've spoken to the neighbors, and they're well aware that if there's any issues, they are to call right away. So, they're very grateful that we've made at least one step
Yeah.
to sort of alleviate the issues there.
any other questions or comments, council? Roll call?
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember McDade?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Baldwin?
Yes.
Mayor Mellick?
Yes.
497-2023, an ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank calendar year 2023.
We have a public hearing on this. Does anyone wish to speak on 497? Stacy?
Stacy Sheehan, this is just I noticed when I was reading it, it says budget 2022. I think it should be 2023, isn't it?
Yes, it was a typo on my end, and it somehow got in the packet, but there should be a corrected 497 right behind it. The figures were the same in each one. It was just the 2022 wasn't updated to 23.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just making sure we don't, put the wrong one in the book.
Okay. Any other public comment? Mr. Roush?
Jules Rouse, more of a question of explanation. Can we have a description of what the city's surplus is? You're talking about a figure of $12.7 million. Can we have an explanation of where that figure comes from, or do you want to put it off?
That's a little bit of a different topic.
Okay.
We will absolutely answer that. Do you mind if we go?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Any other questions on this one? Okay. Roll call. I'm sorry. Any questions or comments, council?
No.
No? Roll call?
We need a motion and a second.
Sorry.
I make a motion.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember McDade?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Baldwin?
Yes?
Mayor Mellick?
Yes. And before we get to the resolutions, I did have the president of TPA asked to say a few comments. So, Mr. Roush, if you would like to say a few words, we'd be happy to hear from you.
Jules Roush, I'm here this evening on behalf of the Taxpayers Board, and I have a statement that I'd like to read to City Council relative to and I'll just read it. The Taxpayers Association of Cape May, representing approximately 1,000 taxpayer members, hereby presents to City Council our position on the Council of Affordable Housing illegal distribution of COA trust funds. This is a trust fund that was established in Cape May that individual taxpayers are required to pay into, based upon a formula and administered by the city tax assessor, and charges the homeowner a fee that builds and/or makes improvements to their property. These trust funds are designed to achieve advancement in city affordable housing. In 2020, $100,000 was illegally diverted from the trust fund without city council approval as required by law, and distributed to 6 city employees with no city council resolution, no administrative approval, or justified reasoning. 1 employee returned 100% of the funding they received. On June 14, 2021, the DEP Community Affairs Office told the city, quote, "Any proposed remediation of this issue of COA funds falls under the jurisdiction control of the city administration and/or governing body. Neither Division of Local Government Services nor the Local Finance Board have jurisdiction over this matter," unquote. The Fair Share Housing Center spokesman, Anthony Campisi, New Jersey administrator for COA, he is quoted as saying, he is concerned about any improper use of affordable trust fund dollars and expenditures, and will want any municipality to make the trust fund whole if any money is spent improperly, unquote. Adam Gordon, Fair Share Housing Center Executive Director, is quoted, quote, "We definitely want to see the trust fund made whole, and we are hoping the city does so voluntarily. If not, it is definitely something we will take action on," unquote. For 2.5 years, the COA issue has plagued the city. In the opinion of the Taxpayers Association, Cape May City Council has the fiduciary obligation to take the immediately necessary legal actions to 1, recover 100% of all illegally distributed funding, 2, assess each individual that accepted the COA trust funds to pay interest for the term outstanding, and pay a prorated share of all legal and collection expenses, 3, pursue a determination and discovery who made the illegal decisions to selectively distribute COA monies. Time is of the essence. No more delays or excuses. This action was approved by a unanimous vote of the Taxpayers Association Board of Directors, April 14th, 2023. We submit this to you as a serious issue. We need to come to some kind of a resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Roush. First of all, if anyone wants to comment on that, they're welcome to, but I would just say one thing that to be honest with you, Mr. Roush, and this is no offense to you, I thought that your statement was going to be on the budget, because that's what we're about to talk about. And I'd like to go right to the budget. If anyone would like to come back to this at any time, we're happy to do that. But we're just about to go into the municipal budget, which I'm sure you understand is
Yes, I
very
do.
important. I understand your connection to the municipal budget within this, but I'd like to move directly to that if that's possible.
Yep.
And I'm not trying to ignore this. Look, now that you said it, let's respond to it. I mean, I don't want to look like we're not trying to respond. I know the city solicitor has been working really hard on this. Legal issues like this take a long time, unfortunately, but I won't say anything more before the solicitor.
I'll say the same thing I said last time, which is that I appreciate the comment. I appreciate the public interest in this issue. I really do. But this, I reject the contention that the city has somehow not taken this seriously or sought ways to address it and is in the process of addressing it. Now, I'm not going to publicly go into the details about that for very obvious reasons, okay? But the city has taken this issue seriously from day one. I've seen that firsthand and is in the process of seeking resolution. That's all I can say about that, Mr. Roush.
Our concern is we would like to see a more aggressive effort to achieve a restitution of this money, and we bring that before council. So thank you very much.
I just want to add one comment to this. Just as the newest member of council, and someone who was not here during some of the prior discussions, I think it's important to recognize that we have been briefed in executive session to the extent that there is information that the city solicitor has to share with us on actions and activities. We are being apprised. And I say that only because, I'm new to this role, and I was a member of the Taxpayers Association, and I know that this has been a long-standing topic at many meetings, and I just think it's important to know that as actions or activities are taking place, we have been provided with updates, but it is very much in the legal hands at this point.
Let me add something to that in defense of counsel. There's no absence of strong opinions on this issue, but they've been advised not to talk about this, okay? So it's in the process of being, resolution is being sought, but I'm not going to go into detail about this right now. I'm not refusing to answer your question. I appreciate the comments, and I understand the interest in this, but the city shares interest in seeing this resolved as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on to the municipal budget resolutions.
125-04-2023, resolution authorizing the reading of the 2023 annual municipal budget by title only.
I'm sorry, do I have a motion?
I make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember McDade?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Baldwin?
Yes.
Mayor Mellon?
Yes.
Yeah, and you're taking 126 off.
Right.
The 2 out of every 3 years, you do your own examination of the budget. This year, you don't. So we were reviewed by the state and approved by the state. So you don't need that resolution tonight.
That's great.
Just to be clear, Mr. Costello, we did resolution declaring eligibility to conduct self-examination of 2023 budget was
That's off.
removed, but replaced with 1260423, same number. It's a resolution to amend the budget.
After the public hearing, then we'll have that resolution, yes.
Correct. I just wanted to be clear because
Yep.
that was on the original agenda, just to be clear what was happening.
Everyone understand that, council, just to make sure? Okay.
So now, tonight's the public hearing on the 2023 budget, which the public hearing will be on the same budget that was introduced. There's no changes made. You do have a proposed amendment after the public hearing which we'll walk through. So now it's the same 0% increase, zero tax increase. I don't know if you've been following the papers or not, but let's see. Going in back order, Pleasantville was 14 cents. Hamilton Township was 5.8. Summers Point, 8.4-cent increase. Middle Township was 4.9. North Rowell was 3.9. Upper Township was 3.9. Year zero.
Mr. Mayor, can I
You've
ask-
had,
Can I ask a quick question
Yeah.
about those numbers? Why are those municipalities seeing a lot of those increases?
well, everybody's seeing big increases in expenses, everybody. You happen to have a lot of local revenues. And the biggest one that you had a big increase in this year was the room tax. So that is basically taking care of the increase in costs that you have. None of those, I mean, I won't pick on any town, but what does any other town have these kind of revenues compared to yours? They don't. You have a large amount of revenues that cover the cost of the city. Your tax to total budget is probably the lowest in the county. So other towns have had big increases. Some have had decent revenues, but not enough to cover it fully. So this is a thing that's been going on. I've been starting this in September when I'm meeting with different towns and warn them that's going to be ugly. It's been the worst year I've ever seen as far as tax increases amongst towns. Year zero.
Well, and I think, I'm sorry.
I just didn't formally introduce Leon
sorry.
Costello, our auditor. I apologize, Leon. So thank you.
Now, my comments, just to follow up on Mr. Costello's comment, is we are fortunate because the room occupancy tax does help. We are also have the fortune of having an extended season. It's, March through to almost, the end of the year and sometimes even into January, which, when the hotels are busy and the B&Bs are open, is a huge benefit. And then parking revenue is another one that tremendously benefits, and it rides along with that. It goes hand in hand. So I think that we are in a very fortunate position, and that both of those things are able to assist us with not having to raise the taxes. But, I think, it's important to note, it's because we have a full plethora of things for people to do almost year-round.
So everyone has a full budget at your table. Just open up to sheet 4C. And I want to show you something that really sets a tone for where the city's at and why you weathered this storm. In fact, last night was called the perfect storm in the town I was at. When everybody gets to 4C, the middle column to the far right, 2022, you anticipate and collected $4,943,000. You collected $7,622,000. There's our answer. We collected. The hotel room tax was a big hunk of that, and parking, as was just mentioned, was another piece that was up. So, but we're using $6,000,003 this year, if you look at the column 23. So we're using some of that money, not all of it, to fund this budget. So you don't see that picture in too many other towns.
And we've also had a lot of other increases. Healthcare increases was pretty significant this year.
Yeah, and like everybody else has, but nobody has $3 million to cover it.
Right.
That's, yeah.
Right.
So with that being said, there is no tax increase. Your ratables went up $22 million. Your percentage of collection is very, very good, and your fund balance is excellent. We are approved by the state. Everything is fine. You can adopt this after the amendment, and away we go. But first, you have to have the public hearing, let the public comment on the budget or whatever their comments happen to be.
Just to add to it, because it is important, Cape May's had tourism for many years and some strong tourism, but we haven't had a tax increase now for 4 years, four consecutive budgets. And I do want to give some credit to these folks, yourself, Leon. I mean, it's taken some real fiscal responsibility to get to this, and it's taken some hard work. And I don't want to, we got more to talk about, but I know how much work you have put in, Kevin, really quickly, in regards to the interest rate that you just worked on, that's looking at something close to $900,000 this year alone. Those are the things that help keep a budget flat rather than having to go to the taxpayer to, $900,000 is like 4 cents on our tax rate. So that's huge. That really keeps us flat for this year, maybe next year, and it's those small things, but add up to a big savings for the city. Okay, so we have, Leon, we would open it up for the public at this time?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Anyone here wishing to speak on the 2023 municipal budget, please come to the microphone, state your name.
Jules Roush, it's a question. We've got a $12.7 million surplus. Would you please explain where that surplus comes from and how it may be used, and to what extent is that surplus cash that is usable?
First answer, it's all cash.
All cash.
100%, yeah, yep. And I just showed on one page where $3 million came from. Your fund balance increased by $2,846,000. $3 million of it was from just your local revenues. The way you get fund balance is you don't spend all the money you appropriate, and you never do, and you take in more than you thought you were going to take in. Those two pieces are either good or bad to fund balance. You had an exceptional year with your fund balance this year because of those local revenues that went up over $3 million. And it can be used for any legal expense.
And if I could add to that, Mr. Roush, you can see why, with that kind of cash sitting around, the interest rate is so important to us. We don't want to just keep it under the pillow.
You also had
Taxpayers
the,
Association has been supporting investing our excess monies for the last 10 years that I'm aware of.
you also, in your discussions on increasing it, the room tax was for additional debt service, which we're doing in this budget also. So that's where a lot of it's being applied to. In addition to keeping all the staff that you had, whatever your contractual increases are, your health insurance increases, pension increases, et cetera.
This year, I think you mentioned there was a $22 million increase in assessed valuation.
22 million, yes.
I think the year ago or so, it was 33 or 34 million.
It might have been, yeah.
And I think that number is fairly solid going forward, looking at the construction that's taking place. We have a tendency to finance with long-term bonds, 30, 35, or 40 years. What is your feeling about that form of...
Wait, for financing for what?
We're financing a lot of projects in the city with long-term financing. I'm
And you said
concerned...
35, 40 years?
30 years. I think
No, our bond sales are usually 10 to 12 years.
I think the firehouse was 30 years.
No, it was not.
What is it?
It was either 15 or 18 years is what the firehouse was.
Then I
I
stand
can
corrected.
get that for you, but I don't have it with me tonight, but I can get that for you. I don't think I have that.
We'll make sure to get that to you, Jules.
No, I just think I do not support what I'll call long-term debt that we impose on the next 2 or 3 generations. I'd like to see us more responsible for what we buy with using recent funding as opposed to postponing the payment. And I make that only as a...
That sale was in '21, and it matures completely in 2036. So it was 16 years.
That's great. I know the convention hall was funded with, I believe, 13 years. So that form of financing is, I think, reasonable and well-financed. Thank you.
It was less than 2%.
And 1.59%.
Thank you.
Yeah, right. Stacy?
I just have a question for Leon, I guess expanding on Mr. Roush's question. The surplus, I know we also have money for like what we call the rainy day fund in case something happens, such as a flood and we had to rebuild anything major. What are we at with that? 'Cause I know a few years ago it was being drained. Are we actually increasing that?
Well, this fund balance is part of that.
I didn't know if it was part of it or not. I guess that's where I was also
Yeah, it's
going with
part
that.
of it, and that's why we're using it to fund some capital projects.
But
We have-
but do we actually put this money away and not touch it, or are we actually, like you're saying now, we are utilizing some of this money?
We're using a small portion of it, we're not using all of it. Out of the $12 million, we're only using $3,992,000, so it's $8,700,000 still left. And then we'll add back to that $8 million with the collections above what we anticipate and the not spending the whole entire budget again.
Now, that has increased over the last couple years?
Yes, it has, yes. Yeah, you've been doing very well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have the figures of what has increased over the last couple of years? And that's actually put away and not touched, correct? And used for like.
It can only
the
be
invest-
used if the council appropriates it through the budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments?
Hi,
Roz.
Roz Johnson, 826 Lafayette Street. I just have a question about, I'm new to all this. So when there is a surplus, before it's spent, do you vote on it?
That's what this budget does.
No, but I mean, like, okay, so there is a surplus, but let's say if you dip into the surplus, for whatever you dip into the surplus for, is that voted on?
Yes, oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so things like the amount of money that the city spends on the arches, for example, that's voted on, does that money come from surplus, or where does that come from?
The arches are actually donors. But
No, yes, but there is some money that the city spends on the arches, correct?
The surplus that's used in the budget is voted on once a year. You cannot go back during the year and take more surplus and vote upon that to increase other expenses. So whatever's in here, that $3.9 million, that's all that can be taken out in 2023. And it's spent for what's on these 82 pages of the budget. It's a mix of everything between police salaries and wages, finance salaries and wages, utilities, insurances. So once a year, they vote on how much to use of the surplus, and that's tonight.
Okay. And and whatever is taken out of the surplus is written in the budget already?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so nothing else can be taken
No.
from the surplus?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Not
you.
till next year.
Thanks, Roz. Chris?
Good evening. Chris Bezaire, 228 Windsor Avenue. I wanted to clarify a couple things. I know the budget doesn't magically appear at one reading. It happens throughout the entire year, and there's recommendations and so forth. And it's been pointed out, as I sat at that table before, and currently from MTRAC and from Taxpayers Association, there's a sense of equality in the town. Obviously, we're a tourist destination, and we want to make sure that the commercial businesses and entities pay their fair share as well as the taxpayers, and that everything is equal. And I hear that word a lot: equality, pay your fair share, equality. This budget that's been introduced, and correct me if I'm wrong, Leon, but the budget as it stands is covered by 55% of it is covered by user fees, 45% of it is covered by tax fees, correct?
50%.
55% of the incomes in the budget are covered by end user fees, occupancy taxes, parking meter fees, beach tags. That's the number I was given by the previous CFO as we were putting this together.
No, in this budget right now, the total budget is $23.7 million. $10.7 million is covered by property tax. $8.494 is covered by local revenues that you.
Okay, so I take that back. So the 10 million is covered by property taxes. So the property taxes cover 45% of the total budget. So less than half of the total budget is being paid for by property taxes, correct?
Correct.
So less than half of all of our expenditures within the city are actually being paid for by the property owners within town, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I wanted to bring that up because it was also brought up that property taxes in the town have gone up substantially. I believe the number that Mr. Crowley gave from MTRAC was from 2011. I have the numbers here from 2013. Why 2013 is because that's as far back as the county site goes. But we have only been, our taxes have gone up 16.45% from 2013 to 2022, almost 10 years. Now, that's the city rate. That doesn't include county, school board, which I'll get into as well in a minute. The only municipalities in the county that have less of a tax increase over that time frame are Middle, Wildwood Crest, Woodbine, and Avalon. There's 16 total municipalities. Only 4 municipalities have had less of a tax increase than us. So to say that the property taxes have been exponentially increased and are disproportionate within the county just isn't true. So that rate went from 0.31 cents in 2013 to 0.361 in 2022. Again, that's just the city portion. The reason I bring that up is we are fortunate, as Leon mentioned, that we have these usage fees, the occupancy tax, which added $3 million more than what we anticipated, which I voted on and was for, mainly made up of the extra 0.5% that the hotels and motels brought in, but also the short-term rentals they're adding to that, is a huge cash windfall for the city. We have a lot of other tourist-based fees that support the livelihood of Cape May. And yet we still continue to try to bang those businesses with more fees and more money to cover costs when the actual taxpayer pays 45% of the costs to run the city. Now, obviously what I'm saying is an unpopular opinion. I am a taxpayer, I own property. I certainly don't want my taxes to go up. But I think it's a wrong mistake to not increase the tax budget year after year after year. I liken it to the mercantile license. We looked at the mercantile license. Amtrak bought up the mercantile license. It hasn't been adjusted in over 10 years, and now all of a sudden you want to whack them over the head because it hasn't been adjusted for 10 years. I think there's a lot of things within the city that a 1 or 2 cent increase on an annual basis, or at least semi-annual basis, could go to cover. And I'm not talking about firehouses, police stations. I'm talking more about infrastructure within City Hall and within the city. For example, we're a $24 million budget as a city, yet we don't have a technology or somebody handles our technology needs on a day-to-day basis. We do an annual contract to somebody that's here, and if your phones go down or your internet's out, well, you have to wait till Thursday till they get here. That's a $23 million budget, and we can't have somebody tell us that they're going to fix our phones or our internet within an hour or two. And to me, that's a mistake. I think going forward, I would recommend to council to review the organization as a whole, because we are a business, and make sure that we're allocating monies properly to the organization as a whole. I liken it, the analogy I like to use as a real estate agent is, you always know that person that brags about their landscaping they just had installed and their brand new pool they just put in. Meanwhile, their foundation's full of termites, their septic's backed up 6 times, and their electric, they get shocked every time they hit the light switch because they don't want to address those things because nobody sees it. Arches and firehouses and police stations, they're all, not saying they're not needed, but they're all easy headlines. They're all easy things to say, look at us and what we're doing. It's the electric and the termites in the foundation and the septic system that nobody really wants to hear about, but it's necessary to make sure you're keeping your house in sound condition, because otherwise you're going to end up with a house that falls down and a nice yard and a pool to sit in while you watch it happen. So that's the reason I bring up the tax increase. We are very fortunate that we are able to have a 0% budget increase. 2 cents, a 2 cent increase, just to give people an idea, is an average of $150 on a $750,000 assessed property. So if your property is assessed at $750, if this budget were to increase by 2 cents for the year, that's an extra $150 for that building. So it's not a huge increase over the whole. It sounds like a lot based on the budget. And again, I realize I don't want to pay more, but I think if done prudently and done in the right way, we can rectify a lot of issues we've been having that aren't necessarily on the surface. The other thing I would charge council to do over the next year is to consider revisiting the school funding formula. I know it's a huge task. I know it's something we've tried before and have been defeated on. However, the Lower Township School funding formula, we're the only one in the county that still has that formula. And I know Jules has gone over this years before. I know that you can't attack that formula just by saying we want to pay less. Usually that's when it gets turned down and it has to go to referendum for Lower Township. But us and Cape May Point, we're the last municipalities in the county that are still part of a funding school formula because we don't have our own high school. Every other municipality in the county is on a send-receive basis where they negotiate what that cost is per pupil to the sending district, and they have contracts for that. And over time, if they're not happy with that contract, they can renegotiate with other districts. It puts the municipality in a much better position. And again, that's a huge chunk of our taxes. So if we're looking to cut taxes, the school funding formula is something that needs to be revisited. I don't expect it to get fixed in a year. I would probably flip a coin whether or not COA or school funding would get fixed first, if we're looking at long term. But it is something I think needs to be looked at. So I applaud council on not having a tax increase. Obviously, it's best for the municipality to do the best you can to keep expenses down and make sure the taxpayers aren't paying more than they should be. But at the same time, realizing that only 45% of the municipal budget is covered by property taxes, and that we haven't had an increase in 4 years, just as Jules had mentioned, not funding things or bonding things for 30 years to pay that bill in the end. I'd hate to see in the next 4 or 5 years, all of a sudden, we have to increase taxes exponentially because we didn't do a little bit at a time over 3 or 4 years to keep pace with where that money might need to go. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. I don't think there's anything to disagree with there. Only thing I will say is I think if you look around the town, frankly, if you drive around the town right now, you'll probably hit a lot of detours because a lot of the utility work, a lot of things that are going on right now. So if there was a tax increase that we felt like, hey, we have more projects that we want to take on right now, I think you make a fair point. We would do that to get those things done. But I think I'm getting a few more gray hairs working on the projects that we have within this budget. And getting into the budget a little bit, the amendment that we're going to make this evening is actually to add 2 more police officers. And we'll get into that later. But we added 2 police officers last year, added 2 police officers into this budget. Necessary, important things to move the city forward, but expensive. But something that the city council feels strongly about and have gotten, frankly, a good reasons and responsibilities from our chief to push forward. Actually, I want to say one other thing. This is completely off topic, but I don't want to forget to say this. Chief, your staff did such an excellent job on a tragic situation this last week. If the Cape May Police Department didn't handle that situation, and I apologize for the segue, but speaking of the police department, if you didn't handle that as if it were just a showboat or a DUI, we may not have caught the person involved. Mm-hmm. But because your staff and the training that they received treated that situation as a very serious issue, while most people may have not thought that it was, they immediately recognized that this could potentially be a crime. They sectioned off the area, took and did, frankly, miraculous police work that within hours to apprehend the person involved. It's a really tragic situation, but from a police work standpoint, your department was aces, so I just want to commend you on that. Yeah. And the reason I just brought that up was getting into, I think, some of the presentations that council received and our understanding of the needs of the police department. And those are things that may have not have happened that long ago, but unfortunately they do. We need to make sure we give the police the tools necessary to get the job done. And Chris, I'm not trying to ignore your comments, but
I did want to comment back to Mr. Brazier.
So with that, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that as a member of MTRAC, as the council liaison, when we did take a look at the most recent mercantile fees, yeah, they hadn't been raised in 10 years. And one of the things that we've talked about on that committee is equality and equity. But I think it's important to note that without raising taxes, no, we don't want to continue to beat the businesses up. I work in a B&B, so I know what that does, and how that downward pressure for every one of those fees that gets layered on and layered in makes it harder and harder for businesses to turn a profit. So we didn't go forward on it. We put it on the shelf. But I would agree with you, and if we're going to move forward on that, then you've got to take a look at the other side of the equation. And this year, fortunately, we didn't need to take a look at increasing taxes. But it may be something that we need to take a hard look at in the future, especially if we want to keep things moving forward. A lot of projects are getting done, but there are still more to come to bring this city into having state-of-the-art infrastructure, whether it be for streets, a full-time IT guy, gal, whoever it might be. So I'm always a proponent of looking at that and looking at spending money smartly. And that's where we'll segue into when we talk a little bit about the addition of the police personnel into the budget this year. So,
Councilwoman McDade, as well as the CME doing our desal plan.
yeah.
So that's another issue that we're, yeah. Okay.
Do we have any other?
I'd like to make a comment, too, before we go to the next person. I just want to reflect, I think it was appropriate that the school funding formula was brought up. That's something that we, as city council, every few years tries to pick up again. This is something that, I say it's very appropriate that we talked about it tonight, because this is something that Jack Richterman brought to everybody's attention and worked very hard at getting changed. So I just want to make that comment, that this thought is appropriate.
Definitely. Thank you. Any other public comment on the budget? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment.
Now, someone, if you do want to do the amendment, needs to introduce the amendment. The amendment consists of taking $150,000 more out of fund balance and putting it into police salaries and wages for the additional officers.
Do we have a motion on
I
the
make
amendment?
that motion.
I'll second.
Any questions or comments, council, on that?
I have a comment. I just want to thank the chief. His staff did an outstanding job in presenting the information to us. I will say that Councilman Yeager and I sat in on the session. My background in understanding operations and needing to run a 24/7 shop made it something that was easy for me to appreciate. The schedules, the complexity, the coverage demands. They did a great job in showing us. We asked for probably another 7 or 8 pieces of additional information, and we had that within a week. It made it very easy for me to make a decision that it was the right thing to do for a number of reasons for the city and the other municipalities that they cover through the shared services agreement, which is West Cape May and Cape May Point. So I felt that this was an investment in our community and money very well spent.
Thank you.
I just want to echo that. I was extremely impressed with your brass in your department and how they explained everything and the situations that are going on. But I would have liked to have seen 3. I think something that we need to look towards our future of increasing some of our staff in some of our departments. I think it kind of reflects something what Mr. Becerra was saying. Just because we don't see it doesn't mean that it's going on. Looking down in the future, I would like to see more staffing for the fire department as well. I think understanding what I've heard today, that the local hospital is refusing patients. So there are times where our ambulances have to go all the way up to Summers Point. And I think that's very time consuming. And life is all about the seconds and the minutes, about, trying to save somebody. So
So is that due to diversion, or is that due to diversions?
That's
Okay.
correct, yeah.
So as a trauma center, which I think that they are still registered as handling traumas?
You're the expert.
Yeah, okay, well, so if they're on diversion, then legally, they are permitted to do it. What we probably need to do is sit down with the fire chief and take a look at it, and figure out how many diversions that they're experiencing on a monthly basis, and take a look at it, to be honest with you, because that is not something that's easily solvable on either end of the conversation, to be perfectly frank, having worked in a hospital and run operations. if they're on diversion, it's because they have the challenges on their side of it. Their ER is shut down. It's shut down because they can't bed patients, and they can't bed patients for a reason. So it's not being done with any intention, but. Of
course not.
Yeah, but if they're experiencing that and they're having to drive another 35, 45 miles up the road and wait,
Each way.
yeah, that's definitely something we need to take a look at the numbers, and so I'm happy to talk with Chief about it, yeah. Mhm.
That'd be
Yeah.
great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I would just like to say, I think it's most important for the city to understand that the change that we're making by adding more police, and also we're hopefully going to be able to increase our Class 2 officers this summer. The issue in town is always enforcement. It's been enforcement. It's going to continue to be enforcement. And this was, of course, this is a step in the right direction to increase enforcement in this town and make this street safer. So the chief and his team made the good case for it, and we fully supported it. So.
Great. Okay.
Just a couple of quick comments. Your presentation, your department chief, that presentation was wonderful. And again, I want to make sure that council, and I know Chief sent out to us all in our local agreements. We are increasing, staff for the city of Cape May, but we also serve other municipalities that we need to really closely look at. How does that affect us in the city of Cape May?
Yeah.
And we need to not bear the burden of a lot of that.
So MTRAC is currently undertaking the review of the shared services agreements. We just had our initial kickoff meeting. Steve Bodnar is here. I'm working with him and Marty as a subgroup for MTRAC. So we'll be working on that over the course of the next probably 5 to 6 months, and then coming back, getting input from Kevin on some of the costs associated with the city solicitor. So I think we've kind of gotten at least the laundry list, understanding of what shared services agreements are out there. Obviously, there are some ones that are more pressing and larger, but there's a number of different things that we have an opportunity to take a look at and address and balance it against being a good neighbor, along with making sure that we're covering those expenses, especially as the cost base increases.
Good. Great. Okay. Do we have a motion in a second?
We do.
And this is on the amendment, correct? Everyone good? Roll call?
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember McDade?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Baldwin?
Yes.
Mayor Mellick?
Yes.
Now you need a motion to adopt the 23 budget as amended.
Do we have a motion to adopt as amended?
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second? Second, Mr. Meyer?
Sure.
Any questions or comments, council? I'll just say, again, thank you to all the department heads. A lot of work goes into the budget, as you all know, but all the department head meetings, all of the conversations that have been ongoing over the last couple months. Lou Belasco, Deputy City Manager Mike Vole, Leon, Kevin, and again, Kevin coming in a little late to the game really jumped in, so my great appreciation for your hard work on this. And all the administrative staff and you as well, Leon, so
Thanks.
thank you. Any other comments, council?
No, I just wanted to comment on the capital
Yeah, please.
budget portion. Just to say that Mike's work on the enterprise lease agreement really freed up some dollars, able to move some things around. I did ask during our meeting with Kevin and Mr. Vole and Lou about project. The headquarters, thank you. I was drawing a blank, thanks. I know that it wasn't planned probably for a couple of years out with regard to the capital improvement that might be needed to expand that facility, but I did ask Kevin, and he put it in there with a to-be-determined amount. I do think it's something that we should start working on now, knowing that it's going to take a couple of years and involve probably, some DEP approvals. I do think that it's important that we show that we're looking to invest and expand upon the facility, given the accommodation for male and female lifeguards. So that was something that I had asked, and thankfully got put onto the list, at least as a starting point.
That's great.
Thank you.
No, the capital budget's a plan. They're not authorizing any expenditures in that plan. It's a list of projects that is anticipated to be done. You don't approve them until you do an ordinance. When you do the ordinance, that approves the individual project or projects, whatever it happens to be, at that given point in time.
Different business, so we
Different, yeah. Yep.
Good, though. Any other comments, council? Roll call?
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember McDade?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Baldwin?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
Your budget's done.
All right. Thank you very much, Leon.
Thank you.
And Kevin, great work. Thank you. Good work. Okay.
Next, we are on to the public portion on resolutions only. Those wishing to publicly comment, please come up to the podium and state your name and address.
Public comment on resolutions only? Stacy?
Comment on Resolution 129, de Blasio. My comment has to do with, I know we're not going out to bid for this. They gave you what they plan on doing. And I think it's great that we're improving the roads, but I think when I looked at this, I guess what they're planning on doing, what they gave us or gave you, is the fact that it's not including everything. And it's almost like we're doing things piecemeal. If you look at page 1 of their suggestions or whatever it is, what they're going to do, for Congress Street to Broadway to Park Boulevard, they're going to do existing water mains, water services, and the sewer main. But when you come to Trenton, Beach Avenue, New York, it doesn't include sewer or water main improvements. Again, Washington Street, Ocean Street to Texas Avenue, it doesn't include.
That, if I can, some of that is based on the I&I study that's ongoing, and the EIS, or what's the location? Yeah, EIEIO? No, the GPS, Stacy, you're familiar, but the city has GPS location map of like all of our utilities. But anyway, to answer your question, some of what's left out is because it's marked as PVC pipe, basically new. Or if it's terracotta pipe, it's in there, basically.
So why I'm saying this, because it seems like every time we start a project, we always add on to it and add on to it. It'd be nice if we started right from the beginning of what we were going to be paying for it and not just keep adding to it. So that's what my concern was, that none of them included. And I think some of those, I thought, and I could be wrong, had some lead pipes in it. But, or wasn't any of those areas?
No, can I, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, please.
I spoke to Mark de Blasio personally in reference to this, and he has, as well as our departments here, they've been coordinating with all of this, and he is very confident. It's all new infrastructure. It's always been something that we've talked about when you were on council as well. We wanted to make sure that we replaced the infrastructure under the ground before we do, when we were first on, we had the major problem where they milled and paved a road and there was old infrastructure. We wanted to make sure that we weren't in that same situation. That's the reason why I called him personally and asked him, okay, are we okay with all of this? And the answer was emphatic, yes, we're fine with all of this.
Okay, so we
As far
can
as we're
honestly
looking
say
at
that we're
new
not going to
infrastructure.
see any bills coming from them for sewer or
Well, you
water.
never
Why
know.
I'm saying that is because when we did Sailor Soldiers Park, that price went up because they found
Yeah.
a sewer issue in there.
Yes.
And that was on Columbia. So, and they, supposedly, we didn't know it was going to happen until it happened.
You never know what's going to
That's,
happen.
that's the problem.
you open it
Yeah.
up.
So,
Yeah.
But-
just real quick, because we are saying that we keep adding on and adding on. Over the last 3 years, none of the contracts have been over what they've been contracted for. So I just want to say that. I don't know any road project
Well,
that
we did. We added on to Baltimore, we added those 2 other blocks there. So we added on to that. We decided to do other 2.
Well, actually, there was a savings on the other streets, so we added Baltimore and, what was the other street you just said?
It was off in New Jersey.
We added those half blocks to it within the contracted price. So with the contract, the actual price came in under contract, under bid. So then we, instead of getting a return on our funds, they simply added that block that needed to get done. So to be blunt, it was kind of a nice way of doing it. But another answer to your question, though, is the fact that these are underground. The maps are not perfect, we know that. And so when you ask, will there be additions? The answer is yes, there will be.
Okay, because one of the streets is Trent Avenue, Beach Avenue, right? And I bring that up is because I thought we had fixed the issue, and the sinkhole's back.
I think it was fixed today.
That was just fixed today.
Today, okay, but we had paid for it, and then it came back within less than 6 months.
Yep.
Right, so, and it's, why I was asking that is because, did we fix it? I don't know, we fixed it today.
Yeah.
But
It's not, it's not
that's
finished,
part
right?
of New Trenton Beach Avenue.
Right. Yeah, yes.
So, and that I didn't know, going up from there, if there's an issue
There
that had
is.
caused, but it's not, is that sewer line, is that a sewer line, or is that stormwater piping?
That is included, yeah.
Okay,
We did the cameras right up the street there,
right.
and
Is
there's
that
no other
stormwater?
issues that we're aware of.
Stormwater, yeah.
So it's just stormwater, it's not sewer or water?
I believe. I'm not
Okay, because
positive.
that's what's not included, is not, the stormwater is included, but not,
Yeah, I think that's under the DOT grant.
There's a footnote here that it's saying that it does not include the services for, because that was going to be one of my questions, because it's saying that it's part of the DOT reconstruction of Trenton Avenue grant.
So it's already, it's
So
already being done.
included in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
okay.
He's the consulting engineer on it.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because if we're going to hire him, let's just hire him for everything and not keep going back to him and adding to it. That was my point. But if you're saying that these things don't have to be done, which I have a hard time believing that Washington Street sewer lines are good, that's all. But,
Oh, I specifically asked him about that when I saw this, and he said, no, that was done maybe 8-10 years ago, and it was all done at that point.
okay.
Okay.
Okay, then my final question has to do with the bill payment.
And just to
Sure.
follow up on that, the I&I study, which is incomplete, the field work is, I understand, basically 99% finished. We'll get a very detailed report based on the I&I study. Obviously, Washington Street was part of that I&I study, so, or at least portions of it, to confirm that it is PVC pipe, and so this will be confirmed in that study as well.
And
Okay.
he was with R&V at
When
the
they did it.
time when they did it.
Right.
So he had the history
Yeah.
going back, okay?
And I think, Stacy, to your point, once we have that information in that study, it provides a more comprehensive plan. So it's
Right.
more like a master plan. Right now, I think it's, it seems reactionary, but in some instances, it's necessary.
Well, I mean, maybe we should have waited to make sure that the pipes are good. I was just thinking until we give him this, so we know exactly what we're looking to hire him
It's kind of
for.
it's a little bit of a chicken and egg thing, but, the I&I study didn't get approved till this year, and, you know how those things go, but some of these other things were needed to be worked on for obvious reasons, so.
I guess, Emily, I have in my notes here, Resolution 25 and 26 also was stating the budget was 2022. Changes were made in that also, to say 2023 instead of 22?
Okay, thank you.
I just want to make sure that we make those changes, so we're referencing the budget for 2023 and not 2022.
That's right there. Yes, I see what you're talking about. That's just a typo. Yeah, we can change that.
Yeah, I think it's for both 25 and 26. Okay, so my last question has to do with the bill pay. My one question about the bill pay, I see we're still paying Lauren Reed, CFO stuff for March. How long is she going to be being paid now that we have a full-time CFO?
I can answer. That was her final payment. in
Okay.
March. Yeah. that's-
So March is, she's no longer working for the city at this point?
Yes.
Thank you.
But if you had any questions from Lauren, we would be happy to pay her to make sure that answer came, just to be clear. I mean, we want to make sure that transition is as strong as it can be.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Any other comments on resolutions this evening? Seeing none, we can close public comment on resolutions.
Is there anything council would like to remove from the consent agenda?
Can I remove 134, please?
And I'd just like to remove 131 for a few comments.
Anything else, council? Okay.
For reports, we have the fire incident report for the month of March 2023, police incident report for the month of March 2023, tax collectors report for the month of January 2023, and the tax collectors report for the month of February 2023. For resolutions, 128-04-2023, resolution approving the 2023 budget of the Washington Street Mall Business Improvement District of the City of Cape May, 129-04-2023, resolution authorizing a contract for professional services to de Blasio and Associates, PC, for engineering, design, and construction phase services for 2023 utility and road program. 130-04-2023, resolution authorizing professional services agreement with Stockton University Coastal Research Center for beach face slope surveying in 2023. 132-04-2023, resolution authorizing the city clerk to issue bingo and raffle licenses throughout the year to qualified organizations. 133-04-2023, resolution authorizing submittal of an updated beach and dune management plan and related beach amenities.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Roll call?
I have a question.
Oh, please,
May.
go ahead.
The bid, don't they usually come presented to us in person?
That's what I thought.
Yes,
I
they
recall
came in
this.
December and presented it, and we had a public hearing. We did not pass, I mistakenly did not pass the resolution at the time, so we just added it on kind of with our budget.
Thank you.
Anything else, council?
No, thank you.
Okay. Roll call?
Councilmember Yeager,
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer,
Yes.
Councilmember McDade,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Baldwin,
Yes.
Mayor Mellick.
Yes.
Next, we have 131-04-2023, resolution authorizing the City of Cape May to develop and advertise a request for proposals to update the Bike Walk Cape May plan.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I wanted to pull this out just to be sure that everybody knew it was in there. Thank you, our solicitor, for putting this together.
That's cool.
Pretty quickly for us. But, some time ago, I don't know if everybody recalls, but we got a grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation for the Safe Streets and Roads Program to develop an action plan. So we got $200,000, which is basically to come up with a plan, which we hope will be followed then by funding to implement that plan. So the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee put together this proposal. It's basically to redo, update the Bike Walk Cape May plan that was put together quite some time ago, update that, but also incorporate, hopefully, things like LSVs in the city and bicycle safety, and also things that we might implement which will help to calm traffic in areas of the city, signage, a whole variety of things. So that's what we're hoping to get out of sending this out for proposals, get plans put together, and hopefully get a grant to go forward and make the streets safer. So
That's great, Mike. The original bike walk, Cape May, dust it off and take a look at it, but it's really well done, and the bike committee did a great job on that.
Yes, they did.
So phase 2 of Bike Walk Cape May is on your shoulders. And,
That's right.
but no, I think that's going to be such a nice project. And I will say, I said dust it off, but if you look at that Bike Walk Cape May, we've probably done about 90% of it now.
That's
I mean,
right.
Maybe
Exactly
85,
right,
but-
yes.
But
And
yeah,
Pennsylvania Avenue being just redone is going to be
Yeah.
added to that.
Right.
hopefully
Safe
soon.
safe
Yep.
routes to school.
Yep.
safe routes to school
Yes.
soon, hopefully this fall, we're pushing.
Yeah, we're pushing.
But,
Yes.
but I think that will be an excellent, be really excited to see what you come up with.
Yes, it's a great group of people. They are really dedicated. They worked hard on putting this proposal together. And I do expect good things, so we'll keep you posted.
Great. Any other questions or comments on that one, council? Roll call?
Councilmember Yeager,
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer,
Yes.
Councilmember McDade,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Baldwin,
Yes.
Mayor Mellon.
Yes.
So we have 134-04-2023, resolution for the payment of bills.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments, council?
Yeah, I just because I was handed this at the last minute, I just want to know, it was pretty considerable. What were the changes on this, the bills list?
So it was just a couple items were added regarding engineering services and then also reimbursement of city employee dues. They could have waited for the next bill list, but they were starting to get overdue, so I figured rather be in good standing with our vendors and our employees, add them to this bill list.
Okay, because I was looking, it's not necessarily at the end.
Was it incorporated into anywhere in particular,
Anywhere
Kevin, that you
here.
recall?
I'm not sure if the latest one.
Well, I think the one here at the bottom, Aetna Better Health, was not on there previously, but that's only at
That's
$220,
minimal,
yeah.
Mhm.
I don't recall this one either.
Do you recall what engineering?
I believe one was de Blasio, which I think we
Okay.
added.
Okay. Okay.
This is one that Josh added. I'm just not sure if this is the most up-to-date here.
Yeah, because I had two of them that were superseded from the previous.
What is
Sorry,
the
I'm
total?
sorry.
Sorry, no, what is the total? What is the total on your,
Mine is 1845,
Yes,
most
okay, then
recent.
that's the final.
Most
Yeah,
recent.
so they're included in there.
They're
Yes,
included in
that's-
this, okay.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Apologies.
Nope, thank you. Yeah, this is my third draft, so, okay.
Are you okay with it, or do you want a second to look at it?
Lorraine, on the last page, I'm sorry. The
You see
last
it on the
page.
last
Yeah, go to the last page. It's the
Audio.
Delaware audio.
Beach speakers,
Yeah, that's a big chunk right there. That was-
25,000.
Yeah, that wasn't on the previous one.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Water and sewer capital.
That just stands out to me right now. That's right.
From the other.
Yeah, from the other, it wasn't on the other.
Yeah, that would be.
Also on page 7,
That's the Blasio. That's
Which
it.
one, Kevin?
on page 7, vendor number 09207, Maria Serda Moreno. I was looking at an old one, I just realized I have the most up-to-date now. Maria Serda Moreno was another one, that 3,790, that was another addition.
Okay.
Beach bathroom.
Yes,
Yeah.
beach
We
bathroom.
we'll happily pay that and.
Exactly,
And
yeah.
get that design. All
Okay.
right, great.
Okay.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
No, that's fine, it's all good.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, correct?
Yeah.
Any other questions, council? Roll call?
Councilmember Yeager,
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer,
Yes.
Councilmember McDade,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Baldwin,
Yes.
Mayor Mellick.
Yes.
Okay, next we're on to old business.
Any old business, council? No? Okay. New business?
I have just, I guess it's really a combination of both. We are finally finished with our low-speed vehicle pamphlet that's ready to go to print this week. I created the copy, but kudos to Casey Radigan for doing all of the graphics. She did a great job for us. We met with the Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Advisory Committee, Councilman Yeager and myself, got feedback from them on the layout, the design. We incorporated those changes into the design, including adding a QR code to the back. We then, thank you, Chief Faschel, for organizing a joint meeting with all of the local LSV businesses who do rentals onto the Cape Eileen community. Mayor Sabo participated in both the Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Committee, as well as with the representatives from the LSV businesses, and even one that sells to individuals on the island. They will be incorporating our pamphlet when they drop off a rental or they execute on a rental for anyone who is renting in Cape May City or in West Cape May. And then finally, working with Emily, we will be mailing out to everyone who's a mercantile license holder one of the pamphlets so that they could incorporate it into the rental property to make people aware of it. We also, the Chamber of Commerce, Doreen and I have communicated. She's going to be getting a number of them to put in the Welcome Center, and also will be posting it up on the website there for us. And so we should be getting those out hopefully in the next week. This is really about, it's a public safety initiative to alert people what the rules and regulations are if they are utilizing a low-speed vehicle, i.e. golf cart, on the island. We incorporated the new changes for the speed limits, but it really is about the regulations for usage. You know, adult-aged driver's license, safety equipment for children, things of that nature, making sure they're adhering to stop signs, making sure that they're adhering to all of the regular traffic regulations. So this was a joint effort with Councilman Yeager and I, and so I'm excited that we've got it going, and hopefully should have those out to everybody by the end of the month. Thanks.
That was a 90-10 effort.
Thanks, Mike.
You did
Nice
a
work.
great job, Councilwoman.
Cool. City Manager Vol, any updates? Any new
I just
business?
want to take this minute to thank council for passing the budget, giving me all the tools I need to continue to provide a clean, safe, and caring city. And the extra police officers, you know, for 3 years trying to balance out the squads, having a sergeant and 4 officers in each car on each shift, and now the chief's going to have that. So we have the tools, and the extra Class 2s and Class 1s this summer is going to really help us out. So I just wanted to thank you. I mean, and each council member, we sat with myself and Deputy Manager and the Chief Financial Officer. We went page by page, and of course the chief had to do his wonderful job convincing the council, but I'm very thankful. So we're going to have a great city this summer. It's going to be a great summer. We have all the tools in place that we need to provide that clean community. So thank you.
It's great. Thank you, Mr. Bull. City Solicitor?
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Nothing new? City Clerk? Deputy City Clerk?
Nothing tonight.
Nothing? All right. It's Deputy Mayor.
Just a couple quick things. The HPC, you guys, everybody here approved the grant that was for updating the design standards. We're part of the way through that at this point. If anybody, we are advertised for a meeting on April the 24th at 6 o'clock. Anybody who can come, that would be wonderful. That's going to be a really important next step to those design standards. Kind of goes into another, we had an HPC meeting yesterday, and there was an applicant that came to us, and they wanted to put artificial turf in their yard, and there's nothing addressed in anything in our land use law, in our standards. So I know that we have Mayor Mullock and Councilman Yeager that are on the planning board. Maybe we can look at that. I think it's something that we need to maybe address, whether Councilman Yeager looking at it environmentally as well as the Environmental Commission liaison. It came up, and I just figured that, you know, it's something that we maybe need to look at.
And I know that there are a number of other communities, specifically in the South, a lot of island communities that do allow it and incorporate it. It has to do with just maintenance. People still want to have the aesthetic look of, grass. There's some very nice products out there, so it probably is something that needs to be evaluated, rather to discourage people from not having something that at least provides aesthetic, and a pleasing look, but provides a maintenance option,
Yeah, I didn't know enough about it, one way or the other.
I saw quite a bit of it when I was down, in the South.
In the South.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And then the last thing, Jazz Festival is coming up May the 5th through the 7th. Really great lineup, so if anybody can make it, it's a wonderful event. That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember McDade.
I had the LSV, I'm good, thank you very much, yep.
All right. Councilmember Meyer?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Again, I just want to thank the police department for having that presentation with us. It's very informative. I have a question. We got an email just recently about remediation by GCP&L. You folks remember seeing that?
This afternoon?
This afternoon.
Yeah.
Did you see that, solicitor, by any chance?
I did.
Where are they talking about?
That's the pipe. The
remediation.
So
It's hard to-
that, what we approved for the removal of the, and replacement of the sewer line on Lafayette Street goes through the area on Lafayette Street close to that remediation. And so JCP&L was there today, meeting with Bob Perna, the contractor that we hired, going over the plan, basically. So DEP will be directly involved with them as they go through that area to make sure that, they call it hot, if the dirt's hot or whatever, the DEP will be on site to go through that. And if it is, then they got to go through the process to process the soil and all that. But yeah, that's what that was about, and JCP&L's involved with it as well.
I just hope that it doesn't delay us,
Well, it shouldn't. It's really more about the removal and disposal of the soil.
But we know the whole park situation.
Yeah, well,
Thank you for explaining that, Mayor. You did a good job with that. I had a nice meeting today with the Shade Tree Commission members. It was a special meeting we had to talk about updating our ordinances, kind of strengthening them, kind of like West Cape May has. West Cape May's Shade Tree Commissioner Chairman spoke with us and gave us some really great insight, Wayne Hoffman. He's a wealth of knowledge. We also talked about, and we had Vince Orlando talk about the trees that are going into Kiwanis Park.
Nice.
What a fantastic plan. And,
Nice.
the Shade Tree Commission was so thankful and supportive of it. So I'm glad that
That's great.
they and Deputy Mayor was there. Deputy Mayor and I, Baldwin, we've seen each other a lot in the last couple of weeks. We've been meeting together, talking about the police station opening, the jitney service. The fire station opening and jitney service, as well as coming up with a date for the town hall meeting. And we're planning sometime in the early fall or just after summer, so that way we can have a good date to do it and we're not rushing for it. A situation happened, something came up to the Shade Tree Commission's radar. Currently, at least according to what I know, there's nothing in the HPC process when reviewing the site about trees. There's no box or checklist, and there was an HPC approval of a house in Cape May, and which is fantastic. But the approval was put out, and the design had a city street tree that was kind of omitted from the plans, wasn't shown in the photographs, and that when the plan was approved, it had a driveway which was going to drive right over where that tree is. I just think there's got to be some kind of process where we incorporate at least another step to the HPC process that ensures that the Shade Tree Commission had a review of it.
They
updating their application.
Yeah, the application, yeah.
form, because being on zoning, I'm sorry, Zach.
Yeah, no,
There was
no.
something that came up when I was on zoning, and we asked them to please incorporate that. I won't go into the details, but we said, look, we've got HPC, not approving an application, and they're coming to zoning now, asking us to overturn it, and it really looked as if it was an administrative-related issue that could have been addressed earlier in the process, and this is in the application process. Had it been addressed on the document, it would have alleviated some of those situations. Sorry, but I thought that was, I knew they were talking about working on that, and I hope that it was going to incorporate both that as well as the other issues that came up with zoning.
That's wonderful.
We've all seen the playing of the different boards against each other.
No, this is nothing, we're very supportive of the HPC. and-
No,
Yeah.
I mean by the applicants.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, this was approved or not approved. So, like you just said, like as part of that application process, we got to make sure that, each I is dotted.
Yeah,
you know,
right. Because it doesn't need to turn into a situation where one board, is being
Yeah.
pitted against another, because then it makes it extremely challenging
Mm-hmm.
when you're, serving public. You're sitting there and you're looking at people that and you're saying you have to vote just because based on the construct of the rules.
Yeah.
But that, if someone had just, done something or had that additional step, all of it would have been alleviated, and they would have, not created such a hardship on everyone's part, including the applicant, because, sometimes they're being sent back 2 and 3 times.
Right. So we asked the city manager to put a stop on this project before they put a driveway in. That way they can possibly curve the driveway around the tree.
good.
And, this is, we all support each other, and it's nobody's fault that some things, fall through the crack. So I brought it up to the city manager and the city solicitor, and I hope we can come up with some kind of process, which sounds like there is a.
How was it caught? Do you know?
It was caught by one of our commissioners.
Okay,
Who's observing the property and
Okay,
seeing,
okay.
oh, there's going to be a driveway here with a
Right,
tree in the
right,
middle of it.
right. I got you.
So
Good.
clearly, the tree was going to get cut down, and nobody wants to force the tree fine on anybody.
No, right.
The problem is, on some of the bigger applications, you'll capture that kind of thing because are you removing any trees or language to that effect is a checklist item on the
That's
zoning
right.
board. And you get sort of that automatic referral on that issue. The issue, and I can't speak to this one here, I don't know the exact circumstances, but there are circumstances where you go to the HPC, you probably go to the HPC more than you would the planning or zoning board. You may have a by right setback application, I can just build new because I'm proposing the building to meet all the setbacks, and you just have to go to the HPC. And the HPC's application just says landscaping, which, that could mean a ton of things. You could add a line for, are you removing any trees?
Yeah.
And that will just flag it right there.
Okay.
But there's no gap in the code right now, but one of the things that, when I was in West Cape May, we did was plug a perceived gap when there isn't one. It was just to say, look, by the way, that we have multiple boards, there's multiple levels of approvals. That's the beauty and the burden of a town like the city of Cape May and towns like West Cape May. You have an HPC, you have a Shade Tree Commission, and you can't get Shade Tree approval at the HPC the same way you can't get HPC approval at the Shade Tree Commission. You got to make sure you're checking all your boxes as you move along.
And thank you, and I think everybody on this table who's ever served on the Planning and Zoning Board or HBC or Shade Tree Commission know that there are clever applicants out there, and they have clever representatives.
Right.
So when you go through the file and you see all these photographs and it's all done in an angle where this tree doesn't exist, I hate to say it's on purpose, but it makes me think otherwise.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer.
Thanks.
Just quickly, again, I want to thank the administration and everyone involved in getting the budget passed. Thank you, council. You all put a lot of work into it. All of you are going through these books, these binders. It's a lot of work. So, Kevin, thank you again. And then again, I just want to say thanks to the chief and the actions of the department and that tragic issue over the last week. And lastly, just a update for the public. I know Pennsylvania Avenue was just repaved, thankfully, so that's completed between Michigan and Pittsburgh. So that looks really nice. We drove by today. It was very smooth. And then the Pittsburgh Avenue is due to be paved before Memorial Day still, so that they're looking at paving that, milling and paving that soon. But also just want to say to the public, we appreciate your patience. We recognize that there's a lot of work going on right now, and the goal is to wrap most of it up by Memorial Day. So yeah, there's a lot going on right now, but we do anticipate having most of it wrapped up for Memorial Day. Some of it, again, starting back up in the fall. So we'll ask for your patience back in the fall again, but thank you. With that, we open it up for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak, please come on up. Mr. Roush?
Jules Rouse, 1010 New York Avenue. Just a couple of things I'd like to comment on, or ask you to comment on. I'm happy to work with Mrs. Baldwin on the contractors list that we're going to try to put forth this year. I'm hoping that we get a better IT organization within the construction department. We need to move forward with that. There's a lot of information that's lacking. I've talked with the chief about cameras in the city, and I had the opportunity to see the organization that he has set up. I'm a large supporter of cameras. I've seen them used in Florida extensively for not only the observation immediately on particular issues, but the prosecution of crimes when you've got camera evidence is phenomenal. And I think that the chief supports that. The TPA's been in support of cameras for at least 10 years, and I think I would encourage City Council to look forward to increasing the number of cameras that we have. One item that the TPA brought up again is the fact that the Coast Guard attendance at elementary school exceeds 50% of the student body. However, the participation in funding the education of the students is nowhere near that kind of a balance, and we're hoping that maybe another conversation with Van Drew will be a little more successful in that regard.
Just on that, Jules, I thought that was the best way to approach this funding thing.
Mayor, we've gone down this road for I don't know how many different congressmen.
Right.
And
But I think that, as we all know, if it goes to a referendum, nothing's going to change.
that's true.
But I think the TPA and MTRAC kind of came up with the suggestion of, hey, there are programs out there around military bases which have the exact same issue that we have of non-tax-paying folks with kids. And so the burden is on, the Cape May taxpayers. And I thought that was the best argument, because there's precedent that in other towns around military bases, there's federal funding that goes to the city to help support the school.
Yeah, it won't help the Lower Township Joint because they have such a very small percentage of military family students. But Cape May's elementary school is totally different. So there were my issues. The only other comment I'd like to make, if you look at the last page of the lease with the AME Church, and I frankly support the project. I think it's a very healthy project for the city. Having been a landlord and looking at the conditions that are set forth in Schedule A, I think there's some consideration that needs to be made as to how to review, coordinate, record exactly what it is that they make changes in that building. I might suggest that there be some kind of a relationship or a committee between the tenant and the landlord to make sure that we're going down the same road, and that they not just jump off and do what they choose and then find out later for some reason it doesn't work out.
Well, maybe, Mr. Roush, we could suggest to Susan Tischler that one of us could sit in on their board meetings as they make these decisions. I'd be happy to participate in that. And that way, it would at least assure that there's
On
represent-
improvements.
on anything that they've got on an agenda that has
Yeah,
to do with improvements.
absolutely.
At least we would be made aware what their discussions were, what their plans were, and that we would be more proactively involved rather than retrospectively finding out. So that might be an approach.
I would strongly suggest that there be some ongoing relationship. I mean, the changes in the electric, particularly the electric, since the incident with the building itself,
Right.
they're proposing to make some significant changes. And I don't know what that does to the overall service and to the building. So there are my comments. Thank you very much.
Agreed. Thank you. Chief?
Be real quick, I know it's getting late in the evening anyway, once you get home. First, Mayor and Council, I want to acknowledge first your acknowledgement of my officers, our officers, your officers for the incident on Tuesday morning, Monday night into Tuesday morning. The officers were met with a simple, everyday dealing we have every evening in the summertime. A vehicle drives up on the beachfront and drives onto the beach. The person abandons it and goes away. I'm very proud of the officers that arrived that morning that were able to sense, because we didn't know this homicide had occurred. Prior to that, I got a call at 6 a.m. from Sergeant Cole, who said, "Hey, listen, I got a vehicle on the beach. It doesn't feel right." I said, "Gus, do what you have to do." He notified the command staff. I notified the manager immediately. I said, "Something's awry here." Moments after that, we got the information about the homicide in Horsham, PA. And I spoke to the chief out there, Chief Fida. He was very appreciative of the manner in which your police department handled that, and I'm very proud of them. I wasn't here, so so it's not a testament to me. It's a testament to them that they were able to think on their feet very quickly. Detective Shostak made a quick call, found that person. You had one homicide that evening, you could have had a suicide, because that's where this thing was going. I don't want to speak openly about the investigation, but we're able to understand exactly what happened in Horsham. And interviewing the mother, unfortunately, I watched the interview, and in speaking to Chief Fida, and my earlier call to him was just to make sure his officers were okay, because they walked into an incident. It was an 11-year-old child. So we have a decent relationship, and he's very thankful that the agencies in this county and in your city were able to secure her. And speaking back to Jules' comment about cameras, we were able to actually watch the incident as it unfolded. I watched the vehicle drive onto the beach, but they weren't our cameras. So in these events, we're always out knocking on doors, getting Ring cameras and everything else. I've met with the manager and Casey up at the convention hall. We're looking to, at some point through budget cycle, look at getting cameras along the beachfront. For just property damage and watching our property. Any city-owned property, we should have cameras on it, eyes on it all the time. It accounts for losses, and it accounts for trips and falls, people claiming they were hurt or something happened on our beaches. So the JIF likes to look at that pre-planning and pre-event. So that, again, I totally agree and appreciate. And thank you for acknowledging the officers. They did a phenomenal job. And it did send them a write-up and put them in our Guardian system for that today. Also, I would be remiss if I did not thank you all for sitting with my staff and allowing us the time to meet with you and explain our situation. And for the first time in my time here, 27, 28 years now, I've watched other chiefs fight councils and do different things and different mayors, but this time it was an easier request. I requested to meet with you at 2 meetings ago. You all were open and ready to sit down. You're very busy. This budget book is not just about the police department, it's about the whole city of Cape May. So you allowed us time to meet with you, talk to you, and go over everything we had to. We brought Kevin into the fold, and he was very quick to sit down and just listen. And it was easy dealing with all of you. Ms. McDade had her experience, Mr. Meyer had his experience, Mr. Yeager, Ms. Baldwin all had their experience, and it was easy with Ms. McDade because she managed over 400 people in her hospital, so she knew where I was coming from. Mr. Yeager knew where I was coming from, and Ms. Baldwin asked the pivotal questions: how are you going to manage this problem you say you have? And you asked for specific items from our officers and my command staff, and they were able to provide it. So the challenge was ours to fail, and you allowed us to get that information to you, and we appreciate that. So I'm very proud of the staff for bringing that to the light. So, it's our staff, it's your staff, but I want to acknowledge them. Duran Hemingway, John Bobick, Captain Bobick, Chris Mazza, Joe Walker, and everybody that got involved with that. But we don't do this alone. The patrol division is where it hits the street. So this fight is for when I'm home sleeping and you're home sleeping, to put more manpower, officers on the street and protect not only Cape May City, but West Cape May and Cape May Point. And the work that you're going to be doing on the shared services agreement, I will sit with you. We will go over that so that we can have a common relationship with West Cape May, because we have a great relationship with both boroughs. And so that it's not a fight, it's a conversation of protective manner. So we're definitely willing to do that. That contract's coming up in 2025. So as we prepare to do that, it's going to be some work, but we'll get there. So I thank all of you, Manager Vol and the manager's office. Again, same thing, Kevin, you as well, and Emily. I bugged you enough with questions back and forth. Katie Morris also helped me with some of the financial look that you wanted. You wanted documentation on overtime and salaries and wages, and we were able to prepare that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Any other public comment? Trish? Trish?
Patricia Turnaby, 719, 721 Franklin Street. Okay, tonight I heard that there are proposed changes and add-ons to the back of the AME Church. It's proposed. Is that correct or no?
No.
Oh, no, okay.
Not proposed. Everyone in this room and everyone knows that to have a theater, they need some space in the back.
Right.
So we specifically wanted to make sure that that was within the contract for Eastland Theater.
Okay, so the building is going to remain the same. There's nothing that's going to be added on?
No, there will be.
There will.
My point is, it's not a proposal this evening. There will be a proposal made to HPC, SHPO, which will be a months-long process that will take some time.
Okay, I just wanted to check because I heard there's changes coming to the building and there's going to be a back end tonight. I just heard this for the first time. And I am within 200 feet of the building, and if I am correct.
You'll be notified.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to be sure.
I understand your concern. No proposal was
Sorry.
presented or approved this evening, just the lease agreement with the AME, with Eastland Theater, rather.
Okay, and this proposal is going to take place at what time? Like when? Like, can you give me some time?
So I think, are you, when you are using the term proposal, are you saying the proposal is adding on something to the back?
Well, I heard that you're going to put something on the back of the church.
That is within the lease currently.
It is within the lease.
Yeah, so what the proposal would be the actual structure, the design.
Right. Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Okay, so that hasn't come up.
Yeah, that's yet to happen.
Okay, all right.
And that'll be made by Eastland Theater in cooperation with the city.
Okay, all right. And I'm going to ask you also for the, I'm sorry, my
Take your
voice
time.
is bad with the dust.
The
as you
pollen,
know.
yeah.
But I wanted to ask you this question. So when that does happen, or your timeline, do you have any type of timeline for that construction for the back of the church now?
Not right now.
Not right
You'll
now.
be notified every step. You'll be notified because you're
I
within
just-
200 feet, and you'll be notified any moves or changes that go on there.
Okay, I really do want to be notified. And as I said, we talked about transparency, and I just hope that still holds. I just want to know,
100%, but
what
I
goes
just-
on.
I do want to respond a little bit, because the headline of last week's Star and Wave was kind of based on some of the comments that were made. So I just kind of want to go back 3 years ago. 3 years ago, we had the Harriet Tubman Museum was looking like it was going to fall to the ground. Vines growing, you could see through both sides of it, windows knocked out. Okay, that was obviously improved. Then you have the Franklin Street School, of course, right across the street. Windows knocked out, decaying for the last 30 years. It's been abandoned, at least the school portion, not the auditorium, but or the gymnasium. But the school portion has been abandoned for the last 30 years. Next to that, you had a firehouse where we had mold issues. We had people coming in to council meetings complaining about it. That was in a really, really bad shape. And now we have a brand-new firehouse. Then across the street from there, you had the AME Church, which, as you know, for several years sat vacant, fire burnt out. So, but the paper reports that as, okay, these things aren't getting done. They're actively being done, and after decades, and I mean decades of inaction, these things are going to take time, and I just want to be clear that no one's claiming that this is going to happen in a day. We do want to work with you 100%. In fact, today I met with Bill Burns on the library project, and I wanted to make sure he got in contact with
he
you
did.
right away. And my understanding is they're going to have a contractor at least once a week come to make sure that anything that needs to be cleaned is cleaned. So my point is just simply, these things are big projects, but they are going to take time, but I do hope that you see that these are major improvements that.
Mayor, I understand exactly what you're saying, and they are huge improvements, and they're wonderful improvements, and I actually look forward to them. I had nothing about, in fact, as a matter of fact, I had nothing to do with that Star and Wave. I was in shock when I read that, because I had no idea that it was coming out. In fact, I had spoke to Mr. Gilden Schwartz on the way walking my dog, and I said, I am so, I was a little embarrassed. I didn't know that that was going to be presented that way.
Me
because
either.
I mean, so you can imagine how I felt.
And you have been such a wonderful neighbor. The fact is, you have so many things going on all at once next to your property. So we're 100% sympathetic. If things are going to be reported like that in the paper, then it's like, okay, I have to respond with kind of an honest answer. Not that it wasn't honest, but kind of say, well, wait, we're making some really serious improvements that we're trying to get done.
I get it.
Yeah.
Well, I just when I heard about the as I
100%.
heard about this new addition to the back of the church, I think not another construction
No,
project,
no.
please.
We are absolutely sympathetic, and you will be definitely notified as soon as anything's going before any boards or anything like that.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank
Absolutely.
you again.
Thank you, Trish. Any other public comment? Seeing none, motion to adjourn?
I make that motion.
All right, thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.